You dance like you're having a conversation with God. The moment Phoenix Sterling's hips started rolling to the Afrobeat fusion, every person in Club Crimson Eclipse stopped pretending they weren't staring. But only one man stopped breathing entirely. His name was Casper Youn. And in exactly 3 minutes and 52 seconds, he was going to give an order so shocking, so dangerous, it would chain both their souls together in the most explosive way imaginable. But let me back up, because you need to understand something. Phoenix Sterling wasn't supposed to be in Gwangju at all. She wasn't supposed to be in that club, and she definitely wasn't supposed to lock eyes with the most feared man in South Korea. But sometimes, destiny doesn't follow the script. Sometimes destiny just throws a match into gasoline and watches what burns. If you're ready for a story so intoxicating it'll make you question your own sanity, so consuming you'll be up at 4 o'clock a.m. with your heart racing and your phone dying. So dangerous it'll wreck every other romance for you forever. Then strap in. Smash that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to experience will rewire how you think about obsession, sacrifice, and the razor-thin edge between love and destruction. And I'm not exaggerating. Not even close. Let's begin. Phoenix Sterling was supposed to be untouchable. At 19, she had a full-ride dance scholarship to Clark Atlanta University, a 3.9 GPA that made her professors beg her to consider double majoring, and a future so bright it had a name: Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. The artistic director had seen her perform at a showcase in her sophomore year, had pulled her aside after and said 6 words that changed everything. "We'll have a spot waiting." Phoenix had cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Happy tears. The kind that taste like vindication. That was before the phone call. It came during her junior year, middle of contemporary technique class. Phoenix was mid-leap when her phone started vibrating in her bag across the studio. She ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. Her professor gave her that look, the one that said, "This better be life or death," and Phoenix grabbed her phone with shaking hands. It was. "Phoenix, baby, I need you to come home." Her mother's voice was too calm, the kind of calm that meant she'd been practicing how to say the next sentence without falling apart. "They found something. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. Baby, they're saying 12% survival rate, but we're going to fight this, okay? We're going to—" Phoenix doesn't remember the rest of the conversation. Doesn't remember packing her dorm room or buying the Greyhound ticket back to Atlanta, or sitting in that sterile oncologist's office while a doctor with kind eyes explained that her mother had maybe 8 months without aggressive treatment. Maybe 2 years with it. The treatment cost more than Phoenix's entire scholarship was worth. What she does remember is the choice. The impossible, soul-crushing choice that no 20-year-old should have to make. Finish her degree and watch her mother die, or drop out and fight. Phoenix chose fight. She withdrew from Clark Atlanta 3 weeks before finals, watched her scholarship evaporate, watched her Alvin Ailey future dissolve like smoke, moved back into her childhood bedroom and became someone she didn't recognize, a girl who smelled like pancake syrup and bleach and desperation. 4 jobs. 4 brutal, soul-eating jobs. Waffle House graveyard shifts, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., serving drunk people scattered and smothered hash browns while her feet screamed and her back threatened mutiny. Teaching kids hip-hop classes at the YMCA, forcing smiles for 8-year-olds who didn't know their teacher used to be destined for greatness. Creating dance content for Instagram sponsors, 30-second choreography videos that brands paid $200 for, each one a reminder of what she'd sacrificed. Braiding hair on weekends in her mother's living room, fingers cramping, neck aching, making rent money 1 cornrow at a time. Every single cent went to treatment. Every single one. And here's the thing about miracles. They cost everything. Octavia Sterling beat stage 4 ovarian cancer. beat the 12% odds, rang the bell at the cancer center while Phoenix stood beside her sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Her mother was alive. Alive. The word tasted like salvation. But Phoenix was drowning. $340,000 in medical debt. No degree. No dance company future. Burnt out at 20 years old in ways that made her feel ancient. She worked those same 4 jobs just to keep from going under completely. Paid minimums on bills that would outlive her at this rate. Stopped dreaming because dreaming hurt worse than the exhaustion. The only time Phoenix danced for herself anymore was at 2 a.m. in her apartment. When the weight of being responsible, being strong, being the daughter who saved her mother, got too heavy. When she needed to remember what it felt like to be Phoenix Sterling, the girl who was supposed to be untouchable, she'd put on headphones, close her eyes, and let her body remember what her heart had forgotten, that she was born for this. That dance wasn't just what she did, it was who she was. But even those 2 a.m. sessions felt like mourning, like dancing at her own funeral. Phoenix Sterling was 20 years old, $340,000 in debt, and so tired she'd forgotten what hope tasted like. She had no idea that in exactly 17 days she'd be on a plane to South Korea. Had no idea that a man with dark eyes and a white suit would look at her like she was the answer to a prayer he'd stopped saying. Had no idea that sometimes salvation doesn't come from playing it safe. Sometimes it comes from dancing in the wrong club at exactly the right moment. Sloan Washington called on a Tuesday at 3 p.m., right when Phoenix was supposed to be sleeping between her Waffle House shift and her evening YMCA classes. Phoenix almost didn't answer, but Sloan had that specific ringtone, the one that meant, answer or I'm showing up at your apartment. Girl, don't say no, just listen. Sloan didn't even say hello. International Elite Dance Festival, Gwangju, South Korea. First prize is $75,000 cash, plus performance contracts worth potentially $200,000. Phoenix laughed. Actually laughed. The sound came out bitter and sharp. Sloan, I don't even have money for new dance shoes. How am I supposed to get to South Korea? They cover everything. Flight, hotel, meals, visa processing. Everything. You just have to get selected. Selected by who? With what audition? I haven't performed anywhere except my living room in 8 months. Sloan went quiet. The kind of quiet that meant she'd done something. About that. Remember that Afro-fusion choreography you posted on Instagram 3 weeks ago? The one you filmed at 2 a.m. in your apartment that got like 40,000 views? Phoenix's stomach dropped. Sloan, what did you do? I submitted it. To the festival. Your application went in yesterday. You what? Phoenix sat up so fast her head spun. Sloan, that video was me in leggings and a sports bra looking half dead. Looking real. You looked real, Phoenix. And apparently, they agreed. 3 days later, the email came. Subject: International Elite Dance Festival. Congratulations. Phoenix read it 5 times before her hands stopped shaking. She was one of 30 dancers selected from 1,200 global applicants. 1,200. The flight left in 2 weeks. Phoenix called her mother, sobbing. Called Sloan, screaming. Then sat on her bathroom floor for an hour trying to remember how hope felt. 2 weeks later, Phoenix landed in Gwangju with 2 borrowed suitcases, 3 borrowed performance outfits, and hope so dangerous it terrified her. The kind of hope that could destroy you if it didn't work out. Competition week was insane. Dancers from 18 countries, choreographers whose work Phoenix had studied back at Clark Atlanta, back when she was the girl with the Alvin Ailey future. Every rehearsal felt like being underwater, beautiful and suffocating at the same time. Phoenix watched girls her age who hadn't had to choose between their dreams and their mother's life. Girls who moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to work graveyard shifts at Waffle House. Girls whose biggest worry was whether their technique was clean enough, not whether they could afford to eat after paying their mother's medication copays. But Phoenix had something they didn't. She had survival in her bones, had desperation in her blood, had 8 months of 2 a.m. dancing where every movement was a prayer for something better. Finals night. Phoenix performed an Afro-contemporary fusion piece she'd choreographed in her apartment between shifts. 3 minutes of everything she'd survived, every bill, every graveyard shift, every moment she'd wanted to give up but didn't. Every time she'd chosen her mother over herself. She called it the weight of love. The music was a blend of African drums and strings that sounded like heartbreak. Phoenix's body told the story her mouth couldn't. What it cost to save someone. What it cost to sacrifice yourself. What it looked like to drown while everyone thought you were swimming. When the music stopped, the auditorium was silent for 3 seconds that felt like forever. Then the applause came, thunderous. People stood. Phoenix walked off stage, shaking so hard she had to sit down backstage. Sloan found her there 20 minutes later, mascara ruined, barely breathing. "You did it," Sloan whispered. "Phoenix, you did it." Results came an hour later. 3rd place, $15,000, not $75,000. Not enough to clear the debt. Not enough to go back to school. Not enough to stop working 4 jobs. But enough to breathe. For the first time in 8 months, enough to breathe. Phoenix called her mother from the hotel room and cried. The good kind of crying. The kind that tasted like, maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. She had no idea that tomorrow night she'd put on a borrowed dress and walk into Club Crimson Eclipse. Had no idea that a man in a white suit was about to see her dance and forget how to breathe. Had no idea that $15,000 was about to become the least important thing that happened in South Korea. Absolutely not. Phoenix looked at the dress Sloan was holding up like it was a weapon. That's not mine. I can't afford. It's borrowed from Min Ji, that contemporary dancer from Finland. She's your size and she insists. Sloan shoved the burgundy-patterned silk into Phoenix's hands. We're celebrating. You just placed 3rd internationally. We're going to Club Crimson Eclipse, getting tipsy, and dancing until security physically removes us. Club Crimson Eclipse? Sloan, that place costs more per drink than I make in a shift. We're having exactly 2 drinks and dancing like we're rich. Now put on the dress. An hour later, Phoenix stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit like it had been tailored for her body specifically, hugging her curves, the burgundy making her brown skin look luminous under the lights. Her hair was in a twist-out that framed her face perfectly. Borrowed heels that made her legs look endless. For the first time since her mother's diagnosis, Phoenix Sterling felt young, actually young, not 20 going on 40, not exhausted pretending to be okay. Just young. Club Crimson Eclipse was everything Sloan promised and more. The most exclusive club in CO District. The kind of place where the velvet ropes actually meant something. Somehow Sloan had gotten them in. Something about knowing someone who knew someone. The interior was all glass and chrome and beautiful people who looked like they'd never worried about money in their lives. This is insane, Phoenix breathed, watching the lights paint patterns across the dance floor. This is what you deserve. Sloan grabbed her hand. Now come on, I hear the DJ is incredible. They pushed through the crowd. Phoenix ordered something expensive that Sloan insisted on paying for. The music was pulsing, hypnotic. And then the DJ dropped it, an Afrobeat trap fusion that Phoenix felt in her chest before she heard it in her ears. Her body responded before her brain could catch up. Phoenix moved onto the dance floor and just let go. hips rolling to the beat, waist winding in ways that made physics look optional, arms fluid, feet finding rhythms the DJ probably didn't even know he'd created. She wasn't performing, wasn't auditioning, wasn't trying to impress anyone or win anything. She was just dancing. Pure, unfiltered, joyful dancing. The kind she used to do at Clark Atlanta before everything fell apart. The kind that made her remember why she'd fallen in love with movement in the first place. Phoenix closed her eyes and smiled, a real smile that came from somewhere deep. And she had no idea that 3 floors above her, the most dangerous man in Gwangju had just stopped breathing. Casper Yoon wasn't supposed to be at Club Crimson Eclipse tonight. He owned it, of course. Owned most of Seo District. Controlled Gwangju's underworld with the kind of surgical precision that made people disappear before they realized they'd made a mistake. At 30 years old, Casper had seen everything, owned everything, destroyed everything that needed destroying. He'd built an empire on fear and strategy, had eliminated rivals with the efficiency of a man who'd stopped feeling things so long ago that emotions seemed like urban legends other people told. He felt nothing. Not joy, not fear, not want, nothing. Until he glanced at the security monitor and saw her. A woman in burgundy, natural hair catching the lights, brown skin glowing, dancing in the center of the floor like she'd been born doing it. But it wasn't just her body, though her body was devastating. It was the way she moved, like the music was a language and she was fluent, like joy was something she'd lost and just found again. Her smile looked real. Casper hadn't seen real in so long he'd forgotten it existed. He leaned forward, watching her on the screen. Something in his chest, something he'd thought was dead, cracked open. Just a little. Just enough to hurt. "Hawk." His voice came out rougher than intended. His head of security appeared immediately. "Yes, boss?" Casper pointed at the monitor. "The woman in the burgundy dress. Find out everything about her. Name, why she's in Gwangju, where she's staying, who she came with. Everything." Hawk pulled out his phone, already making calls. "Right away." "And Hawk?" Casper stood up, straightening his white suit jacket. "Bring her to the Sky Lounge, not by force, by invitation. Make it impossible to refuse." Hawk's face went carefully blank. He knew that tone. It was the same tone Casper had used 3 years ago before he eliminated the Choi family, before he took over the entire Seo district, before he proved that mercy was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Understood, boss." As Hawk left, he made one additional call to his second-in-command. "Start running background on a woman, early 20s, black, currently dancing on the main floor, and pray she's not important, because the boss just gave an order, and you know what happens when he gives orders." 3 floors below, Phoenix spun, laughing, completely unaware that the trajectory of her entire life had just changed, that in approximately 8 minutes, the most devastating man she'd ever seen would walk directly toward her through a crowd that parted like the Red Sea. That she was about to have a conversation that would lead to an impossible choice. That sometimes salvation comes dressed in a white suit and speaks in a voice that makes you forget every warning you've ever been given. Phoenix was mid-spin when she felt it, that primal instinct that made the hair on her neck stand up. Someone was watching, not the casual club watching that happened everywhere. This was different, predatory, focused, absolute. She turned. The most devastating man she'd ever seen was walking directly toward her through a crowd that parted like Moses had shown up in a white suit. And God, what a suit. Tailored so perfectly it had to be custom. White jacket over a black shirt, no tie, the kind of expensive that didn't need to announce itself. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, Korean, probably 30, with bone structure that looked like someone had carved it specifically to make women forget how to think. sharp jawline, high cheekbones, dark eyes so intense they didn't look real. Black hair styled back from his face in a way that probably took 2 seconds but looked effortless. But it wasn't just his face. It was the way he moved, like he owned everything he looked at, like gravity worked differently for him. People didn't just move out of his path, they practically dove out of it. Some looked terrified, others looked reverent. He stopped directly in front of Phoenix, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and intoxicating that probably cost more than her rent. "You dance like you're having a conversation with God." His English was perfect, just the slightest hint of an accent that made every word sound deliberate, important. Phoenix's throat went completely dry. Thank you. What's your name?" Her heart was doing something irregular. Phoenix Sterling. Phoenix. He said it slowly, like he was tasting it, like her name was something precious he wanted to memorize. "I'm Casper. Come have a drink with me." It wasn't really a question, but it wasn't quite a command either. It existed in that dangerous space between invitation and inevitability. Every instinct Phoenix had screamed danger, red flags, abort mission. This man was too smooth, too confident, too everything. Men who looked like that and moved like that didn't ask girls like her for drinks just to be nice. But Phoenix had spent 8 months being responsible, being careful, being the good daughter who sacrificed everything. Tonight, just for tonight, she wanted reckless. One drink. His smile was small but absolutely devastating. "Follow me." He led her through the club, and Phoenix noticed something unsettling. People moved out of his way with a kind of fear that made her stomach twist. Not just respect, actual fear. A bartender saw him coming and went pale. A security guard nodded like he was seeing royalty. Who the hell was this man? They went up a set of stairs Phoenix hadn't even known existed, past another security guard who opened a door without being asked, into a space that made Phoenix's breath stop. The Sky Lounge. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking all of Gwangju. The city sparkled below them like someone had spilled diamonds across black velvet. Leather furniture that looked softer than clouds. A full bar with bottles Phoenix recognized from movies about rich people. Art on the walls that probably belonged in museums. "Holy shit," Phoenix breathed. "You own this place." "I own many places." Casper walked to the bar with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He pulled out a crystal decanter filled with amber liquid. "This club is one of them." He poured 2 glasses and walked back to her. When he handed her the glass, their fingers brushed. Electricity. Pure, undeniable electricity that shot straight up her arm and made her forget how to breathe. "Sit." He gestured to the leather couch positioned perfectly in front of the windows. They talked for 2 hours. 2 hours that felt like 2 minutes. Phoenix told him about the competition, about her dancing, about her mother's cancer, about dropping out of Clark Atlanta, about the debt that was drowning her, about dreams that felt impossible now. And Casper listened. Really listened. Not the polite listening people did while waiting for their turn to talk. He watched her like every word she said mattered. Like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met, like he was memorizing her. Phoenix felt seen. For the first time in forever, maybe for the first time ever, she felt actually seen. "How long are you in Gwangju?" Casper asked at some point, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "I fly out in 2 days. Something flickered across his face. Something dark and dangerous and almost desperate. 2 days isn't enough. Enough for what? He leaned forward. close enough that Phoenix could see gold flecks in his dark eyes she hadn't noticed before, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his body. To understand why watching you dance made me feel human again. Phoenix's heart stopped, just completely stopped, because the way he said it, raw and honest and almost vulnerable, made it sound like a confession, like he'd been dead for a very long time and she'd just reminded him what breathing felt like. The knock came at 9 a.m., which was cruel because Phoenix had only fallen asleep at 5 after replaying every second of last night in her head. She stumbled to the hotel door in an oversized t-shirt and bonnet, expecting housekeeping. Instead, a delivery man stood there holding the biggest arrangement of white roses Phoenix had ever seen in her life. Behind him, another man held a black garment bag. "Miss Phoenix Sterling?" The first man's English was careful. "That's me?" They handed her everything and left before she could process what was happening. Phoenix set the roses on the desk. They smelled expensive, like they'd been imported from somewhere flowers grew better, and found a small card tucked between the blooms. "Dinner tonight at 8. My driver will collect you at 7:45. Wear this if it pleases you. K." Her hands were shaking when she unzipped the garment bag. The dress inside was black, sophisticated, the kind of elegant that didn't need embellishment because the cut did all the talking. Phoenix didn't know fashion brands, but she knew expensive when she saw it. This dress cost more than $3,000. Easily, maybe more. And it was exactly her size. Exactly. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Phoenix answered with her heart in her throat. "Did you receive my gift?" Casper's voice made her knees weak even through the phone. "How did you know my size? How did you know what hotel I'm staying at?" "I wanted tonight to be perfect." That's not an answer, Phoenix thought. That's terrifying. But what came out of her mouth was, "Okay, I'll have dinner with you. 7:45. Don't be late, Phoenix Sterling." He hung up before she could respond. That evening, Phoenix put on the dress. It fit like it had been made for her body specifically. She did her makeup carefully. Dramatic eye, nude lip, the whole thing. Put on the only nice jewelry she owned. Looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. At 7:44, her phone buzzed. "Downstairs. Kay." The Mercedes waiting at the curb probably cost more than her mother's house. The driver opened the door without speaking. The interior smelled like leather and money. They drove for 20 minutes through parts of Gwangju that looked like money had its own zip code. Finally pulled up to a restaurant that was all glass and steel and modern art. The place was empty, completely empty. Just one table set by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, and Casper, standing there in all black. Black suit, black shirt, looking like sin incarnate. "You're stunning," he said when he saw her. Pulled out her chair himself. The food was incredible. Each course more beautiful than the last. Phoenix could barely taste any of it. The tension was too thick. The questions too loud in her head. Finally, halfway through the main course, she set down her fork. "You said you'd tell me the truth," Phoenix said, her voice steadier than she felt. "So tell me, what do you really do, Casper?" He set down his fork, too, looked directly at her with those dark, intense eyes. "I control Gwangju's underworld. Weapons, territory, protection, high-level operations. If it's powerful and underground, I own it." Phoenix's heart stopped, just completely stopped. "You're a criminal." "I'm a businessman in an industry that operates outside traditional law." "Have you killed people?" The question came out as a whisper. "Yes." His voice didn't change, didn't soften. "Not many, but yes." Phoenix felt sick. Felt like the floor was tilting. "Why are you telling me this?" Because I need you to know exactly who I am before you decide. Decide what? Casper leaned forward. Whether to stay in Gwangju. With me. Phoenix stood up so fast her chair scraped. This is insane. We just met. You're a crime lord. I'm a broke dance major with student loans. This doesn't make sense. I know. Casper stood too. Moved around the table until he was close enough that Phoenix could see the gold flecks in his eyes again. Close enough to touch. But Phoenix, I'm 30 years old, and I've never felt anything close to what I felt watching you dance. I've built an empire on not feeling things, on being cold, on being in control. And then you smiled on that dance floor, and something in me broke open. That's not... You can't just... Stay. His voice was raw, almost desperate. Give me a chance to prove this is real, that I can be what you need, that this, he gestured between them, isn't just in my head. Phoenix's hands were shaking. I fly out tomorrow. Change your flight. Stay 3 more days. That's all I'm asking. 3 days to know if what we both felt last night was real or just insanity, Phoenix finished. Chemistry, Casper corrected. 3 days, Phoenix Sterling. What do you have to lose? Everything, Phoenix thought. I have everything to lose. But what came out of her mouth was 3 days. Phoenix walked out to the restaurant's terrace because she needed air, needed space, needed to process that she'd just agreed to stay 3 more days with a man who'd casually admitted to murder over pasta. Her phone exploded. 12 texts from Sloan, all in the last 5 minutes. Where are you? Phoenix, answer your phone right now. I've been researching him. Get out of there. Phoenix's hands went cold. She called back immediately. Sloan answered on the first ring, crying. Actually, crying. Phoenix, where are you? Tell me you're not still with him. What are you talking about? What did you find? I found articles. Phoenix Casper Yoon isn't just a criminal. He's wanted by international authorities. Interpol has a file on him. There are rumors he's personally killed over 40 people. 40, Phoenix. Phoenix's stomach dropped. Sloan? 3 years ago, a woman dated him for 6 weeks. Australian journalist. When she tried to leave Gwangju, she disappeared. They never found her body, Phoenix. Never found anything. She just vanished. Phoenix's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. That can't be true. There's a whole dark web forum about him. People call him the Ice King because he feels nothing, because he's killed so many people he's lost count. Phoenix, women who get involved with him don't leave. They vanish. You don't understand. He's not... Get out of there! Sloan was screaming now. Phoenix, I'm looking at photos of crime scenes, of bodies, of... Oh God, please, just get out. Phoenix hung up. Her whole body was shaking. She turned around and nearly screamed. Casper was standing in the terrace doorway, had been standing there, heard everything. Is it true? Phoenix's voice came out as a whisper. Did you kill a woman who tried to leave you? Casper's expression went completely cold. The vulnerability from earlier vanished like it had never existed. No. Then what happened to her? She was killed by a rival organization trying to send me a message. But I know who gave the order, and I made sure they suffered for it. She wasn't mine, but she died in my territory. I took responsibility. That's not an answer. The answer is... Casper took a step closer. I've killed people who deserved it. Traffickers. Men who hurt women and children. People who thought they could operate in my city without consequences. But I have never harmed a woman, especially not one I care about. How do I know you're telling the truth? You don't? His voice was raw. You have to trust me. Trust you. I've known you for... The explosion cut off her words. Glass shattered everywhere. The terrace windows blew inward in a shower of deadly shards. Phoenix felt herself being pulled down. Casper's body covering hers as bullets tore through the space where they'd been standing. "Stay down!" Casper's voice was completely different now. Cold, commanding, lethal. Men in black tactical gear burst through the doors. Phoenix watched in absolute horror as Casper pulled a gun from under his jacket. When had he been carrying a gun? And moved like death incarnate. 3 shots, 3 bodies. Precise, efficient, terrifying. More men poured in, more gunfire. Casper was shouting into his phone in rapid Korean while returning fire. Phoenix couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch as the man who'd looked at her like she was oxygen transformed into something else entirely. "We need to move." Casper grabbed Phoenix's hand, pulled her up. "Stay behind me." They ran. Past bodies Phoenix tried not to look at. Through smoke that burned her lungs, downstairs 2 at a time, into the street where black SUVs were already screeching to a stop. "Get in!" Casper shoved Phoenix toward the middle vehicle. His hands were gentle even while his voice was steel. "What about you?" Phoenix grabbed his jacket, terrified. "I'll be right behind you. I need to make sure they don't follow." He cupped her face for half a second. "Trust me, Phoenix. I'll find you." Then he was gone, running back toward the building with his gun raised, moving toward the danger instead of away from it. The SUV door slammed shut. Phoenix was screaming for them to go back, to wait, but the driver was already accelerating, taking turns so sharp Phoenix felt sick. She twisted around to look through the back window, saw more muzzle flashes, more chaos, and Casper, disappearing into the smoke like he'd been born in it. Phoenix pressed her hands against the window, watching Gwangju blur past, and realized with absolute certainty she'd just fallen for the most dangerous man alive, and she had no idea if she'd ever see him again. The SUV drove for 40 minutes, taking turns so sharp Phoenix felt sick. Her hands were still shaking. She kept seeing it, Casper moving like violence personified, the bodies dropping, the blood, the way he'd looked at her for half a second before running back into the chaos. Finally, the vehicle slowed. Phoenix looked up and her breath caught. A massive compound, walls at least 15 feet high, guards everywhere, cameras on every corner, razor wire catching the moonlight. This wasn't a house. This was a fortress. The SUV stopped. A man opened her door. Hard eyes, tactical gear, the kind of face that had seen things Phoenix didn't want to imagine. "Miss Sterling." His English was accented but clear. "I'm Hawk, head of security. You're safe here." "Where's Casper?" Phoenix's voice was hoarse from screaming. "The boss will be here soon. Please, come inside." They led her through security checkpoints into a room that was beautiful and luxurious and felt exactly like a cage. Silk curtains, expensive furniture, a view of gardens that probably cost more to maintain than Phoenix made in a year. "Someone will bring you anything you need," Hawk said. "Please rest." "I don't need rest. I need to know if he's okay." "We're working on it." Then Hawk left, closing the door with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell. Phoenix checked her phone obsessively. No messages, no calls, nothing. She tried calling Casper, straight to voicemail, tried texting, delivered but not read. An hour passed, then 2, then 4. By 11 p.m., Phoenix was losing her mind. She tried to leave the room. Guards outside immediately stepped in front of her. "Miss Sterling, please stay inside for your safety." "I need to know if he's okay." "We're working on it. The moment we have information, you'll be informed." Phoenix went back inside, pacing like a caged animal. She'd known Casper for less than 48 hours. This was insane. She shouldn't care this much, shouldn't be this terrified. But all she could see was him running back into the gunfire. All she could hear was his voice. Trust me, Phoenix. I'll find you. Midnight. Phoenix was staring out the window when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with shaking hands. Hello? A voice with a thick Russian accent responded. Miss Sterling, my name is Alexei Petrov. I'm the leader of the Serpent Collective, and I'm currently looking at your boyfriend Casper Yoon, who has a gun pointed at his head. Phoenix's entire world stopped, just completely stopped. What do you want? Her voice came out as a whisper. You, Miss Sterling, in exchange for him. The man sounded amused, entertained. We've been watching. We know you're important to him, very important. We're willing to make a trade. A trade? Simple, really. You turn yourself over to us and we let Casper live. You have until sunrise to decide. That's 6 hours. You can't. The man laughed, a sound that made Phoenix's blood freeze in her veins. Choose wisely, Miss Sterling, because if you don't come, we'll send Casper back to his people in pieces, starting with his fingers, then his hands, then, well, you have an imagination. The line went dead. Phoenix stared at her phone, unable to breathe. Outside, she heard it. The sound of engines. Lots of engines. She ran to the window. Her heart stopped. 50, maybe 60 black SUVs were pulling up around the compound, surrounding it completely, forming a perfect perimeter. An army. Her phone buzzed. Text from the unknown number. Look outside. That's our army. 6 hours, Miss Sterling. Come to us, or everyone in that compound dies. Including him. Another message. This one was a photo. Phoenix's hands were shaking so violently she almost dropped the phone. Casper, tied to a chair. His face was beaten, bruised, covered in blood. His white suit was torn and stained dark. His eyes were closed. Unconscious. Or worse. Phoenix slid down the wall, phone clutched to her chest, and made a sound she didn't recognize. Something between a sob and a scream. She'd known him for 36 hours. 36 hours. And now she had 6 hours to decide if his life was worth more than her own. 6 hours to choose between safety and a man who'd looked at her like she was the answer to a prayer he'd stopped saying. 6 hours to decide if she was brave or just catastrophically stupid. Outside, the army waited. Inside, Phoenix Sterling, 20 years old, broke, exhausted, terrified, realized that sometimes love doesn't wait for logic. Sometimes it just demands everything you have, and asks if you're willing to pay the price. Phoenix's hands were shaking so violently she dropped the phone. It clattered against the marble floor. The photo of Casper's beaten face still glowing on the screen. The door burst open. Hawk, tactical gear, radio crackling. Miss Sterling, we need to move you to the inner safe room immediately. No! Phoenix's voice came out steadier than she felt, steadier than she had any right to sound. Hawk stopped, stared at her. What? I know what's happening. Alexei Petrov called me. All the color drained from Hawk's face. He contacted you directly? He wants me in exchange for Casper. 6 hours until sunrise. Absolutely not. Hawk's voice was steel. The boss would rather die than... But I wouldn't. Phoenix picked up her phone, looked at the photo again. Casper's face, the blood, the bruises, unconscious and broken. I wouldn't let him die. Miss Sterling, you don't understand what you're saying. These people... I understand perfectly. Phoenix cut him off. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something in her had gone very calm, very clear. Take me to whoever's in charge of security decisions, now. Hawk stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. Follow me. 5 minutes later, Phoenix stood in a room with Hawk and 3 other men in tactical gear, all arguing in rapid Korean. Their voices were getting louder, more desperate. "Enough!" Phoenix's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Everyone went silent. "I'm going. This is my choice. Miss Sterling." Hawk's voice was almost gentle. "You don't understand what they'll do to you." "I understand that I will not let someone die for me when I can stop it." One of the other men spoke in English. "The boss gave explicit orders. Your safety is priority one." Above his own life. Phoenix laughed. It came out bitter. "Yeah, well, he's not here to give orders right now, is he? And I'm not asking for permission." She thought about the photo. Casper, beaten unconscious. Casper, who'd looked at her on that dance floor like she was the first real thing he'd seen in years. Casper, who'd said her name like it was a prayer. Casper, who'd covered her body with his own when the bullets started flying, protecting her before himself. She thought about her mother. Octavia Sterling, who'd beaten 12% odds because Phoenix had chosen to save her. Because Phoenix had dropped everything, sacrificed everything, to fight for someone she loved. She thought about 8 months of survival. 8 months of never choosing what she wanted, always what was necessary, always what was responsible. And she realized, maybe this was insane. Maybe she'd known this man for 36 hours and that wasn't enough time to fall in love with someone. Maybe she was about to make the stupidest decision of her life. But for once, she wanted to choose something because it mattered to her. Because he mattered to her. Because that look in his eyes when he'd said, "You made me feel human again," mattered more than safety. Phoenix pulled out her phone, texted Sloane with shaking fingers. "If something happens to me, tell Mama I love her. Tell her I finally did something brave." Then she looked at Hawk. "I'm going. You can help me or you can watch me walk out that door and try to find them myself. Your choice." Hawk stared at her. The room was so quiet Phoenix could hear her own heartbeat. Finally, he exhaled slowly. Ran a hand through his hair. "The boss is going to kill me when he finds out I let you do this. If I don't do this, he'll already be dead." Hawk closed his eyes, then pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in Korean, fast, urgent, almost apologetic. Hung up, looked at Phoenix with something that might have been respect. "The car is ready, Miss Sterling." Phoenix nodded, walked to the door. Her whole body felt strange, calm and terrified at the same time, like she was watching herself from outside her own skin. She was about to trade her life for a man she'd known for 36 hours. Either the bravest thing she'd ever done, or the last. Chapter 9. The Sacrifice. Phoenix changed into simple clothes, jeans, a plain t-shirt, sneakers, the kind of outfit you wear when you're not trying to impress anyone because there's no point anymore. She pulled her hair back into a ponytail, no makeup, no jewelry, just her. She stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself. Really looked. 20 years old. This might be the last time she saw her reflection. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt eerily calm, like she'd already made peace with whatever came next. Phoenix pulled out her phone, hit record on a voice note. "Mama." Her voice cracked on the word. "If you're hearing this, it means I made a choice. I know you'll be angry. I know you'll say I should have chosen myself, should have been smarter, should have run. But Mama, you taught me that love means sacrifice. You sacrificed for me my whole life. Every job you worked, every bill you paid, every dream you gave up so I could have mine. This is me finally understanding what that means. This is me choosing to fight for someone the way you fought for me." She wiped her eyes. "I love you, and I'm not afraid." She sent it to Sloane with instructions typed through tears. "Don't send this unless I don't come back." 2:47 a.m. Phoenix walked through the compound. Guards lined the hallways. Some looked at her with respect, like she was a soldier going to war. Others looked at her with pity, like she was already dead. Phoenix kept her head up, kept walking. Hawk was waiting by the armored SUV. His face was carefully blank, but his eyes gave him away. He looked like he was about to let someone walk to their execution. "Miss Sterling," his voice was rough. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Phoenix thought about Casper's eyes, the gold flecks she'd noticed in the Sky Lounge. The way he'd looked at her like she was oxygen and he'd been suffocating his entire life. The way his voice had cracked when he said, "You made me feel human again." She thought about how she'd felt dancing in Club Crimson Eclipse. Free, alive, herself. She thought about how Casper had made her feel that way even when she wasn't dancing. Like she was enough. Like she mattered. Like she was worth obsessing over. 36 hours wasn't enough time to fall in love with someone. But Phoenix had learned that time was a luxury people with normal lives got to worry about. For people like her, people who dropped out of college to save their mothers, people who worked 4 jobs just to breathe, people who'd forgotten what hope tasted like, time worked differently. Sometimes 36 hours was enough. Sometimes 36 hours was everything. "I'm sure," Phoenix said. She got in the vehicle, 2 guards with her, both armed, both looking at her like she was the bravest person they'd ever met, or the most foolish. Maybe both. The SUV started moving, drove through the compound gates. Phoenix turned to watch the lights fade behind her. This fortress that had felt like a cage now looked like safety disappearing in the rearview mirror. The streets of Gwangju were empty at 3 a.m. Dark, beautiful in a lonely way. Phoenix watched the city blur past and thought, "I came here looking for $75,000, looking for a way to breathe, looking for a way to save myself from drowning." Instead, she'd found something worth more than money, worth more than safety, worth more than the careful, responsible life she'd been living. She'd found someone who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd stopped asking. The SUV drove deeper into the city, toward Serpent Collective territory, toward whatever Alexei Petrov had planned, toward a fate Phoenix couldn't predict and couldn't control. She didn't look back. Phoenix Sterling had come to South Korea with nothing to lose except her pride. Now she was betting her life on a man she'd known for 36 hours. Whether that made her the bravest woman alive or the most foolish, well, you'll have to wait for part 2 to find out. Because what Alexei Petrov has planned will shatter everything you think you know about love, sacrifice, and how far one man will go to save the woman who brought him back from the dead. And trust me, when Casper Yoon wakes up and discovers what Phoenix has done, the entire city of Gwangju is going to burn. Hit subscribe. You're going to need it.